asked whether or not the border should be decriminalized. Do you still believe that?
I believe there should be consequence. We have laws that have to be followed and enforced that address and deal with people who cross our border illegally.
Should they feel comfortable and confident that what you're saying now is going to be your policy moving forward?
Dana, I think the most important and most significant aspect of my policy perspective and decisions is my values have not changed.
At the same time, in La Crosse, Wisconsin, Donald Trump was at a town hall, which apparently Trump at first didn't realize was a town hall, moderated by former Democratic presidential candidate turned Trumper Tulsi Gabbard, who recently endorsed the Republican convicted felon and adjudicated sexual assaulter. The town hall was yet another unhinged performance where the former president continued to unravel right before our very eyes. Seemingly confused about what he was doing there and rambling about a litany of grievances from bacon and wind farms to his favorite side topic, immigrants allegedly taking the black jobs.
I had the speech all set for you. I was ready. They said, sir, you're actually doing a town hall. I said, oh, nobody told me that. They're coming in by millions and millions, and a lot of them are taking the jobs for the black population. They are a threat to democracy. I'm not a threat to democracy. I mean, they picked this guy. He is weird. Right? He's weird. I'm not weird. She was for everything that you're not against. I could go through 14 different... She's changed on every single one of them.
Oh boy, that last bit is a point Trump and his campaign have harped on, which is odd, coming from a guy who changed his party affiliation 5 times and changed his own positions even more. Like how he used to support a woman's right to choose and then supported punishing women for choosing to have an abortion, a position he continues to flip-flop on. Trump is set to speak at the annual gathering of Moms for Liberty later this evening, and who knows what he'll believe by the time he gets there. Vice President Kamala Harris and President Joe Biden, meanwhile, will make their first appearance together since she became the Democratic presidential nominee in Pennsylvania on Labor Day. Her campaign also announced that it is launching a 50-plus stop reproductive freedom bus tour. The first stop will be next Tuesday with an event near Donald Trump's Palm Beach, Florida home. I have a great panel to discuss all of this. New York Times columnist Charles Blow, New York Times Molly Jong-Fast, special correspondent for Vanity Fair, Charlie Sykes, MSNBC contributor and columnist, and David Rothkopf, columnist for the Daily Beast. Thank you all for being here. I think I mushed everybody's things together. You all are just really great journalists who are hanging out with me for a while, so we're going to go with that. Molly, I'm going to come to you first because you and I have been chittery-chatting on this off camera, so I just supposed to bring it out. I mean, there was a demand that this interview happened.
Yes.
The Harris campaign has been just harangued by the media, by the press. I mean, you must give us an interview.
Right.
Were you as surprised? Well, I guess I wasn't surprised, but I was disappointed at what was done with the interview. And I'm not bashing Dana Bash, not at all. And this is not about her. But when the media demands an interview, it's interesting that only 4 of the questions were not, hey, Donald Trump said this horrible thing about you, respond. Your thoughts?
I would like to pull back for a minute and say that before the media decided that the Harris-Wallace campaign needed to do an interview, Donald Trump started. Republicans were like, why won't she sit for an interview? She must sit for an interview. Then the media went on this train. And
because don't they always, whatever Trump says, the media says, oh, that must be the story. Let's now recycle that and put it in our words.
He tends to have some success as assignment editor.
Yeah.
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But people don't look at him critically at all in the media, which I think is surprising considering his long list of lies and untruths. But I thought what I thought was interesting, there was a lot of pressure for her to sit for this interview. She sat for an interview. The goal of an interview is to get as much information as possible.
Correct.
So when you ask her these, why should she have to defend herself against a smear? Like, what would the possible... I mean, I think she did a great job of shutting down questions that were unanswerable. Like, asking her what she thought about Donald Trump saying nasty things about her identity, being racist. Like, what would she say? I mean, and I thought she dealt with that really well. She said, next question.
What is she supposed to say? I mean, Charles Blow, and I knew this question was coming. I knew it because I've been in this business a long time, okay? The idea that we are now simply recycling things Donald Trump says into what the media wants to know, as if that is helpful to any voter. There is a black person sitting right in front of you, and you're literally going to ask them to justify, are they black? You can see them. You are visually looking at them. It's called television. You can see them. The camera can see them. And she definitely black. So my question is, these questions are workshopped, right? And so as an entity, this media entity decided that out of the maybe 10 questions they were going to get, the limited time they had available, that's what you ask? Your thoughts, Charles? I think you're mute. You're on mute. Ooh, the gremlins are getting Charles Blow. Wait, rewind, stop. Unmute yourself and start again, Charles, because I definitely want to hear what you have to say. You still muted? He's still muted. Okay, we're going to hold Charles. We're going to figure out Charles's audio situation. Let me go to David Rothkopf. Because I mean, and look, we're not trying to bash I just want to be very clear. We're not like being like media organization, nah. But David Rothkopf, we have a limited opportunity. I've interviewed Vice President Harris. I would love to interview her again. But there are so many policy questions on the table that are so interesting, you know? I mean, there's going to be perhaps 2 woman presidents in our hemisphere at the same time. The new president of Mexico is a woman. What will be the policies toward Latin America? You've got Maduro happening in Venezuela. This is a huge crisis, like right near us, and it's the south of Mexico. There's so many interesting regional questions, economic questions to unpack with her. And we're unpacking whether the black lady sitting in front of this interviewer is black. And I'm depressed.
Well, I'm sorry you're depressed. You should. I question why you're being quite as charitable as you're being towards Dana Bash and CNN, because the reality is you're right. They could have picked any question. They could have talked about the future. They could have talked about where the economy is going from here. They could have talked about AI. They could have talked about how you build on the successes of the Biden administration. They could have cast a lot of these questions in the context of Trump and some of the problems that exist with Trump or with Vance, just the things that he's done this week that are outrageous, whether it's at Arlington Cemetery or whether he's tweeting lewd comments about Kamala. I can't even believe that story has disappeared.
Yes.
That somehow this guy has tweeted this thing that is utterly repulsive and disqualifying in the midst of a campaign that seems to be dedicated to make sure that no woman in America votes for him. That didn't come up. Abortion didn't come up. And that's the fault of somebody. It's, you know, it didn't just fall from the sky, right? It didn't fall out of a coconut tree. Dana Bash and her colleagues chose to do it that way. And it was a big mistake. And what it conveyed to the audience was, this is why we don't do these interviews.
Yeah.
Because they don't add value.
Absolutely. And Charles Blow, I understand that you are back. The gremlins have freed you and released you. Because here's the thing. The media demands these interviews. And one wonders if the purpose of the interview is so the media gets to finally hit the Democrat with whatever it is that Donald Trump is saying about them. Because if I'm a voter and I just want to know who to vote for and I'm undecided, asking that black lady if she's black is not going to help me decide that, because I already know that she's black. She's black like Halle Berry's black. I hate to break it to y'all. A lot of your favorite black people have a white parent, okay? I mean, this isn't shocking, and this isn't like a thing that you need to like litigate with people. Or have a non-black parent. Like, that's like a normal, but so that doesn't help. And so if a 10th of your interview is that, and 60% of your interview is Donald Trump said this thing about you, what do you say about it? How does that help a voter decide anything? I'm done, Randy. Go, Charles.
Right, but what it does do is it helps Kamala Harris tremendously. This was the best gift that the media and, you know, the establishment could have given to her. I had written about it. I just said, you know, she's riding a wave. She doesn't need to do any interviews. Keep a good thing going as long as you can. But if you're going to give it, and you're going to get questions like this, really softball kind of questions. And there are some tough questions that are very hard to answer and keep the Democratic coalition together.
Sure.
Questions around Gaza. I mean, there's a lot of questions out there that really will test a candidate and figure out whether or not you can hold that coalition. But what this did was allow her to basically kind of escape any sort of, you know, The point here was to do no harm. She did no harm to herself.
No.
I think they looked great. The chemistry looked great. And I think a lot of times what people are voting on is a feeling, and they want to justify that feeling with policy. You know, a lot of the policies that I was worried about when Biden was the nominee are still the policies that I'm worried about. But there are more donors now, there are more volunteers now, and a lot of that is driven by a feeling. And what Kamala Harris and Tim Walz were able to do was to underscore that the feeling is justified. I have this under control. We are in command, and we are on top of the issues that they ask us about. They're not even going to ask us about all the issues. So I think it's a big win for them.
I totally agree. I mean, this interview did no harm. 6 million people watched it, Charlie Sykes. Big win for them. They got to show their chemistry. And then people going, oh, she needed Tim Walz with her. No, CNN got a coup because they got the first interview with both of them. And that is what CNN wanted. And that's what they got. So if people are just understand how the game is played, y'all. All these networks want an interview with each of them. CNN scored an interview with both of them. So all that was CNN winning, right, and getting a good ratings win. But none of this, Charlie, answers the questions of other than you'd see that they get along great, they have great chemistry, and they did no harm to themselves in a situation in which they were meeting a media demand.
Well, let's just pull back the lens, because it's not just that interview last night. It's this incredible imbalance, not just in the media, but in American politics right now, because we're now parsing through, did Kamala Harris change her position on fracking? While Meanwhile, you have the felonious, rapey, seditionist ex-president of the United States, tweeting out 50 tweets from QAnon, talking about jailing his opponents, going off on these wild, bizarre rants about bacon and windmills. And to David's point, just a couple of days ago, he's actually tweeting out this vulgar, sexual attack on her. And it's like we need to kind of keep all of that in perspective. Yeah. That these things, one thing is not like the other.
And meanwhile, folks, Molly, are taking seriously this idea that Donald Trump he's proposed a policy on IVF. We're going to take that seriously, for real. Here is Donald Trump speaking with NBC's Dasha Burns about IVF.
Under the Trump administration, we are going to be paying for that treatment. So we are paying for that treatment, all for all Americans that get it, all Americans that need it. So we're going to be paying for that treatment, or we're going to be mandating that the insurance company pay.
In Florida, the state that you are a resident of, there's an abortion-related amendment on the ballot to overturn the 6-week ban in Florida. How are you going to vote on that?
Well, I think the 6-week is too short. It has to be more time, and so and I've told them that I want more weeks.
So you'll vote in favor of the amendment?
I am going to be voting that we need more than 6 weeks.
A mandate, you say. Mandate, you say, sir. Mandate. So when the children are born, they can die of measles and COVID, but because you can't mandate that. You can't mandate vaccines. We're going to mandate $50,000 IVF treatments. Let me now let you play the reason we should not be taking seriously anything Trump says now about abortion or IVF, which, by the way, far right-wing evangelicals believe is sinful and demonic, okay? Here he is talking about what he thinks should happen to women who get abortion back in the day, 2016, on Hardball.
Do you believe in punishment for abortion? Yes or no, as a principle?
The answer is that there has to be some form of punishment.
For the woman?
Yeah, there has to be some form.
This is what we might call in the Washington Post great piece, the make wild health care promises portion of the Trump campaign. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I actually read that piece and I was like, oh, that's right.
Yeah.
And he did in 2017. He said he's going to get health care for everyone, right? And then he tried to overturn the Affordable Care Act.
His party just voted not to protect IVF.